More than 6 million years ago, the Earth entered a period of intense upheaval. The once ubiquitous forests began to shrink. The climate changed every day, the dry season became longer. The land became barren, trees grew fewer, food sources became scarce. In this context, the small creatures, our ancient ancestors, who lived in the trees, began to be pushed to the ground. No longer were the dense foliage to protect them. No longer were the branches safe from predators. Every step below the ground was a step into danger. Yet, in this adversity, a new ability began to emerge, walking on two legs. As our ancestors stood upright and walked, their hands were freed from climbing. They could now grasp, hold objects, and learn to use them. They began to observe the environment with a longer vision. They learned to navigate. They learned to recognize danger from a distance, and gradually learned to adapt. It was also thanks to walking upright that the brain gradually had the opportunity to develop. Each action was no longer a simple reflex, but a conscious choice. Walking on two legs, it sounds simple, but it was the first step of transformation, opening a new evolutionary era for humans. No longer creatures hiding in the dark. Our ancestors began to accept the challenge, and took the first step on the path to becoming the future masters of the planet. Initially, our ancestors only knew how to eat wild fruits, tree roots, young leaves, natural food, although easy to find, but poor in nutrition. And then, when nature gradually became harsh, the harvest was no longer as regular as before. The shortage began to push them to a difficult and reckless decision to seek out animal carcasses to eat. When humans first tasted meat, even from dead bodies, it was when their bodies felt a source of energy stronger than any fruit they had ever eaten. Protein, fat, iron, essential nutrients for the development of the body and especially the brain. From eating carcasses, humans began to learn how to compete with other carnivores. Had to wait for hyenas to finish eating. Had to sneak around the claws of lions and leopards. They had to be faster, more determined, to get their share of the food. But then, the survival instinct did not stop there. Our ancestors gradually understood, if we keep waiting for the carcasses to rot, we will always be the ones following. But if we know how to go first, we can proactively choose the best part. And so, an idea appeared for the first time in human history. Hunting, prey, live, no weapons, no sharp claws, only brains and hands. But in that lab, they learned to track, learned to be incredibly patient, sometimes stalking prey for hours, even days. Little by little, humans entered a new role. No longer gatherers, but hunters. And at that very moment, the whole history of evolution took a completely new turn. Not just food, but energy, brains, behavior, society. Everything began to change, from just one moment. The decision to eat meat to survive. Meat, although nutritious, is not easy to come by. To hunt prey, our ancestors had to have something more than bare hands. And then, an action happened, seemingly small, but it changed human history forever. They picked up a stone and smashed it down. The sharp fragment cut through flesh. It killed the prey faster. It helped cut flesh easier, split bones faster. That was the first tool of mankind. A stone, seemingly inanimate, now became a weapon. A sturdy branch, when sharpened, became the first primitive spear. From bare hands, humans had many times more strength, just because they knew how to think, and dared to try. But tools are not just for hunting. It is a symbol of primitive intelligence. It is the first evidence that humans do not live by instinct, but know how to create to survive. And when humans know how to create things that nature does not give them, it is also the time when they begin to overcome their dependence on nature. Each stone axe, each animal bone spearhead, each piece of stone meticulously chiseled, gradually spread through the generations. The next person learned from the previous one. Skills passed from hand to hand. Wisdom passed from eye to heart. And so, tool culture was born. Not a random thing, no longer a reflex, but an intellectual heritage that can be multiplied, transmitted, and developed continuously. It was not just a tool jump, but the first step on the path. To make, to learn, and to create. Alone, man cannot bring down a large animal. Alone, he cannot chase prey across the vast grasslands. But, when there were two people, then three people, then a whole group, everything was different. One person stalked from behind. One person pressed from the side. One person waited where the prey would run. The hunt was no longer a solitary act. It became an organized plan. There was division of roles. There was coordination. There were signals. And most importantly, there was mutual trust. That was the first seed of society. No need for clear language. Just a look, a gesture, a small hiss coming from the throat is enough for teammates to understand each other. Gradually, from that cooperation, primitive language began to form. The first meaningful sounds, calling each other when discovering prey, signaling when it was time to ambush, sounds of joy when hunting successfully. And then, speech was not only for hunting. It became a bridge between people. People not only hunted together, but also shared food, building shelter together, caring for the wounded, protecting their young. From the instinct of survival, people transformed into a community that knew how to love and cooperate. And it was that cooperation, the way they looked at each other, that helped people rise up, not by muscle strength, but by something higher, connection. At first, fire was fear. Fire burned the forest. Fire devoured. Fire burned mercilessly. But then, one day, a group of people stopped, not running. They looked at the fire. They saw light, not just danger. They approached. They kept the fire alive with dry branches. They knew how to keep the fire alive through the night. And then, they tamed fire. From there, a silent revolution began. Fire helped humans cook meat, kill bacteria, make food softer, easier to digest. Fire warmed the cold night, shooted away wild animals, created a safe zone in the wilderness. But fire had more than just a survival function. More importantly, it became a gathering center. Every night, by the glow of the fire, people sat together. They recounted the day's hunt. They passed on their experiences to the growing child. They shared their fears, their joys, their hopes. It was by that fire that, for the first time, memories were told in words. Memories no longer died with one person, but lived on in the minds of others. Fire not only warmed the body, it also warmed the soul of primitive man. From there, the first pieces of civilization began to take shape. Memory, language, storytelling, communication, love, a fire, small in appearance. But it was the first light that opened the cultural era of mankind. More than 6 million years, a period of time so long that we cannot imagine. From a small, primitive creature, always hiding in the dark, humans stood up, hunted, cooperated, used tools, learned to pass on fire, keep the fire, and hold each other. No longer living by instinct, humans began to live with thoughts, emotions, memories and goals. Each wandering step on the grasslands of the past has now turned into trails, then into paths, then into habitats, then into villages, into communities, into the world. Our ancestors did not have fangs like tigers and leopards. They did not have wings to fly like birds. They did not have the speed of horses. But they had one thing that no other species had: intelligence and humanity. These two things helped them to overcome, helping them step out of nature, not to subdue it, but to understand, conquer, and transform it. Today, as we stand in brightly lit cities, walk on asphalt roads, touch screens, send signals to places thousands of miles apart, remember, it all began with a first step in the wilderness, a first fire in the dark night, and an unyielding journey of small but great people. We are the descendants of those who lit the first fire. Let us live a worthy life, with the evolutionary journey that has been paid for with blood, sweat, and courageous steps.